So everyone on Zoom and YouTube, we're just finishing getting ready. You're not missing anything, really. Hey, Laura. Hi, Dinesh.
Hey, good.
Rebecca. Hi, it's good to see you again. Stephanie. It's good to see everyone.
Testing. Gosh, this thing is fancy. It's really nice. Um, so, I'm kind of excited about this class for some reason. So let's do this. We'll start out. We'll do 3 prostrations, and then let's do the prayers. Refuge, bodhicitta, 7-limb prayer, and short mandala offering. And then I'll do just a little brief introduction, and then we'll do the video, and then we'll do a little bit of blah, 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 talking, and then we'll be done. And then we'll wrap it up with meditation. That'll be about midnight. No. We got to get out of here. That's right. These people have more important things to do than learn about how to be happy. All right. So anyway, we start out, new kid on the block. Say again. Charlie. I love that name. Charlie. So we start out with, usually do prostrations. Are you from a Buddhist country? Which one? Cambodia. Okay. Well, you know what bowing is. So, but in the Tibetan tradition, we do 3 prostrations. Again, there are reasons to do everything. Like everything in here looks dramatic. I mean, there's a lot of color and everything like that. But everything in here is designed for one purpose, and that's to help us be happier, to become enlightened, nirvana. Everything has symbolic significance. So when we do prostrations, we usually start. We touch the crown of our head, and we touch our forehead, our throat, and our heart. And as we touch the crown of the head, you can imagine that light and nectar coming from the Buddha and purifying your body. And then you can imagine that like white light. This is if you want to. And then you touch your throat, you imagine red light purifying your speech, and you touch your heart and blue light purifying your mind. And then you bow down and touch your head, and I'll show you how to do this. This is called a half prostration. And why do we do prostrations? There are a couple of good reasons to do them. Exactly. Thank you. She's channeling me. What? Because I remember the first time I did them, I didn't want to do them. Please come up to the front. Don't want anybody in the back. Find a seat closer up front, please. So it's antidote to arrogance. I remember the first time I did them, I did not want to do it because I was, what? arrogant, and I still am. But anyway, it was an antidote to arrogance, and it is. And then also, it's a like arrogance and pride are the big pride, particularly like I already know everything. You know, that's a huge obstacle to learning. So we're not going to learn anything as long as our mind is inflated by self-importance or pride. So again, an antidote to pride and arrogance. Also, we're purifying our body, speech, and mind. And Islami Yeshi, my teacher many years ago, he died in '83, but he told all the Westerners who were at this course in Nepal that I went to, they said, well, can't we just give up these prostrations? These are not they're not fun, they're not cool, you know. And he said, well, you know, sometimes it's just good to put your head on the ground. Just touch your head to the ground. Sometimes that's good. And so you can think of as you do that, like, you're like dumping out all of the arrogance, all the negativity, any obstacles you might have to benefiting from tonight's class. So, and then on top of everything else, I'm going to say a mantra that will multiply the power of these prostrations by 100 million times. Ready? All right, so we'll do 3 of these. If you know this mantra, you can do it along with me. Oh Namo Manjushriye, Namo Susriye, Namo Tamasriye, Soha. Oh Namo Manjushriye, Namo Susriye, Namo Tamasriye, Soha. Oh Namo Manjushriye, Namo Susriye, Namo Tamasriye, Soha. So please have a seat. Well, maybe we could start out with a little meditation in a few minutes, but I just wanted to go over. I just made this up. Well, this I just found before I walked out the door, and I thought it would be cool to put it up, even though sometimes we think the purpose of life is to be happy. Even I've heard the Dalai Lama say that. Oh, the purpose of life is to be happy, but it's deeper than that, isn't it? It really is. From a Buddhist perspective, we're right on. Ralph Waldo Emerson was right on the path. It's to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Pretty cool, huh? The purpose of life is not to be happy. It's to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived well. I love this. I gave it to my daughter. It was in her dorm room. I don't think she ever looked at it, but I'll put it back up next year. And then, so this is the class. I just whipped this up a few moments ago. All about karma, right? And it's the, as when you see the video, and particularly when Neil Houston and Venerable Dondrup, he's been here, by the way, many years ago. Neil, he says, this is the most important teaching in Buddhism. This room ought to be full. I mean, and maybe it is on Zoom, but this is the most important teaching in all of Buddhism because everything comes out of this. Everything depends upon karma. So that's me. Looks like an alias, I know, but it's Don Brown. The course goal, pretty clever, huh? Yeah. The goal of the course is to learn all about karma, as the title implies. Of course, there's a lot to learn, so we won't learn all about karma, but we'll learn a fair amount. And then I just made this up as I was going, but I have to add one more thing. This is probably the most important one of all, actually, one of them. Okay. All right. So you will, and I'm serious now, because if you listen and participate 100%, do the meditations and really give it your best effort, the seeds will be planted for every one of the things I'm saying. You will understand the important aspects of karma so that you can take responsibility for every aspect. Too many aspects. Every aspect of your life, and learn to create a future that includes happiness beyond your wildest dreams. I asked, there was a Geshe Sopa at the University of Wisconsin for many years. I asked him one time, I said, he was Lama Yeshe Lama Zopa's teacher, was a debate partner with the Dalai Lama and professor at Wisconsin, and he was a monk. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I asked him one time, I said, this is when Kadampa Center was like a baby, not even a baby. I didn't even know if we'd been conceived yet. But anyway, I said, how can we get people interested in Buddhism? He said, Buddhism is really about having your dreams come true, the things that you've always wanted for yourself that were positive things, of course. That this is how we create that. Buddhism is the method to having our dreams come true. And the wildest dream we have is that we don't suffer. And that's called nirvana. It's called freedom from suffering. So nirvana, and then create the causes for freedom and the full enlightenment of a Buddha. So what is a Buddha? A Buddha is somebody who's achieved nirvana, and then they've gone on and developed the 6 perfections and the wisdom, and develop their highest potentials for love, compassion, skillful means, power, everything that you can imagine that would be. A Buddha is somebody who's done all of that work on themselves so they can help others. The purpose is to help others. The method is one's own enlightenment. So the goal is, how can I help others? I got to get enlightened. It's sort of like a cardiac surgeon. How can I learn how to do cardiac surgery? And so I can help, save lives and all. Oh, I got to do like 10 years of residency and a lot of practice. This is what we're talking about. The purpose. The only reason to become a Buddha is because you want to help others, and becoming a Buddha is a method. You will learn how karma and the wisdom of emptiness or shunyata work in concert to create your reality. That's going to be a big one, because that's something most people here don't know. We don't talk about it at Kadampa Center very often, but it's crucial that you understand the significance of how karma and emptiness work in concert for us to create our reality. And then last but not least, how to purify karma, because we're constantly creating it 24/7. And most of the karma that we're creating with body, speech, and mind is motivated by self-interest, which by definition is the cause of negative karma. And so we absolutely need to know how to purify our negative karma. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. And then the Dalai Lama quote. So I was listening to a teaching by His Holiness one time. And he said something that was pretty surprising. He said, because, how much do we talk about emptiness around here? The wisdom of emptiness, how important it is, blah, 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 blah. The 2 wings of the bird of enlightenment, compassion and wisdom, but wisdom's the key, and so on. The Dalai Lama said, look, if you had wisdom and karma, and you had to figure out which one to throw out, he said, throw out wisdom. He said, karma is so important. He said, it's that important. So that's the Dalai Lama, not just me. So that's how important this class is. If we can get it, just a taste. We're not going to realize all the nuances of karma, but if you can come out of this class with some newfound knowledge of how to create your future reality in a way that it ripens as happiness and not suffering, that'll be huge. It'll be fantastic. So the definition, we'll let the video do that. So let's do the prayers first. We're going to do the refuge and bodhicitta. So refuge and bodhicitta, refuge has to distinguishes Buddhists from non-Buddhists, and bodhicitta distinguishes those who aspire for individual liberation from those who aspire to full Buddhahood. And so I'm not going to go into much more detail. Prayers first. We're going to do the refuge and bodhicitta. So refuge and bodhicitta, refuge has to distinguishes Buddhists from non-Buddhists, and bodhicitta distinguishes those who aspire for individual liberation from those who aspire to full Buddhahood. And so I'm not going to go into much more detail. Prayers first. We're going to do the refuge and bodhicitta. So refuge and bodhicitta, refuge has to distinguishes Buddhists from non-Buddhists, and bodhicitta distinguishes those who aspire for individual liberation. I can't those who aspire to full Buddha. All right. Well, we'll do the prayers now. So can you see
It's
them?
page 98 in the prayer book, or they're up on the screen.
They're on the screen, yeah. So again, the first line, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. To the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. So that's a Buddhist. That distinguishes Buddhist from non-Buddhist. Buddhists go to refuge until I become enlightened, particularly in the Mahayana tradition. And the second two lines, by the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. That in order to benefit all sentient beings, that's the Mahayana motive, isn't it? This altruistic intention to become enlightened based on love and compassion. So this is what this is, and it sets the tone and at least helps set the motivation for the rest of the evening. And it also, it's important to do this. So I'll do it 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Now, the 7-limb prayer. Got that one? This also has a lot of profound meaning, but we won't talk about that right now.
It's page 35 if you're in the gold prayer book.
So you can imagine the first line, I prostrate with body, speech, and mind. What's that in here? Antidote to pride, arrogance, right? And so each line in here has some significance, some antidote to some delusion in our mind. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined, declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. And we do the mandala offering, and usually it's good to have something in your hand, but I don't have much. Anyway, like a mala or something like that. But the mandala, usually this is symbolic of the universe. The Buddhist cosmology, there's Mount Meru at the center, and there are 4 continents. So we hold it at our heart, and we imagine that we're offering the universe of, in other words, it's like typically it's done before teachings, offering it to the Buddhas, I guess, and the teacher, but it's coming from a place of the teachings are so precious, so unimaginably precious, that we'd be willing to offer anything to be able to receive these, including the universe and all the wonderful things in it. So we got the full, yeah. All right. this ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha fill and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. We'll stop there. And then last, at the very end, usually you go, Idam Guru Radhamandala Kamni Yatayami, which means I send forth this jewel mandala to you precious gurus. So like that. Okay. So let's launch into the video, and we need to darken the lights in the back, maybe. So these are the teachers. Some of them have been here. Some of them have not, but really, it's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. So that's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side. Really, it's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. So that's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side. Really, it's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. So that's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side. Really, it's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. That's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side. It's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. That's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side.
We all want to be happy. When you think your destiny is in the hands of God or everything happens measured, and you feel you have no
It's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. That's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side.
We all want to be happy. When you think your destiny is in the hands of God or everything happens measured, and you feel you have no
It's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. That's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side.
We all want to be happy. When you think your destiny is in the hands of God or everything happens measured, and you feel you have no
It's a good synopsis of where we're going with this class too. That's Lama Yeshe on the right-hand side. Yay. Technology. Keanu Reeves actually played in the movie The Little Buddha. He played the Buddha in that movie. See if you can go back to Keanu Reeves because he had some good things to say.
Actually determines the nature of any act.
When you think you're dead,
There you go.
we all want to be happy. When you think your destiny is in the hands of God or everything happens randomly, then you feel you have no control. There is no chance to create your future. In Buddhism, the recognition of the law of cause and effect, also known as karma, is a fundamental key to understand how you've created your world with actions of your body, speech, and mind. When you truly understand karma, then you realize you are responsible for everything in your life. It is incredibly empowering to know that your future is in your hands. In this program, we will learn the basic laws of karma and how to change your world.
In this 6th program of our series, you'll learn about karma and the law of cause and effect. You'll begin to understand how your own actions of body, speech, and mind actually create your life experiences. And what actually determines the nature of any action, positive or negative, is our underlying motivation. Therefore, it becomes especially clear at this point the essential importance of the practice of motivation. Therefore, before listening to these teachings, in order to plant the most powerful seed we can in our mind streams for our own happiness and for the happiness of all other living beings, let us generate an especially strong motivation of bodhicitta, the highest intention possible, in order to be able to reach enlightenment as quickly as possible, to liberate other sentient beings from their sufferings, and bring them to the perfect happiness of enlightenment as well.
Where did you come from? Well, Christians and the rest say you came from God. Western materialists say you came from mummy and daddy. Well, Buddha says you came from previous moments of your own consciousness, right? And so the implication here is kind of central to all the practice in Buddhism. And this is the implication here is the concept of karma, cause and effect. Karma. Okay? This, if you like to find a creative principle in Buddhism, this is where it is. This is what you'll find. If you want to find who am I, why am I, who made me, where do I come from, why is the world the way it is, why is there suffering, why is there suns and moons? The answer in Buddhism is karma. If you ask the question, who made me, well, Buddha says very directly, you did. So this consciousness of ours, it's not physical, doesn't come from God or Buddha, doesn't come from mother, father. Your body did, no problem. Egg and sperm, no problem. Turns into this nice body of yours. How kind of mother and father to provide the body, you know? But who you are, your personality, your characteristics, your propensities, your love, your hate, your anger, your jealousy, your pride, your craziness, your intelligence, whatever, doesn't come from mother, father. Just because we're like them doesn't mean that they gave it to us, you know. So consciousness, it's beginningless, not created, doesn't just come from nowhere. It's not some random event that just pops up out of the sky, you know. Isn't physical, not created. These are the central points about mind. And in a way, for a Buddhist or for a person even wanting to understand Buddhism, to at least hear these words is kind of crucial to an understanding of how you practice and how you develop. And all all of Buddha's teachings are based on this concept, actually. Everything we say, do, or think, in Buddhist terms, is a karma, if you like. Like everything you do say or think is like a seed that you're planting in your consciousness that will bring a fruit similar to that seed. But all karma is Buddha's explanation of why. That's all. It's simply his technical explanation of why you get harm, you get love, whatever the story is. I mean, it's a heavy-duty idea, but it's very empowering because it says, I can change it.
What we call karma, actions and their results, possesses four main characteristics. The first is that whatever action has been created, it will definitely bear its effect, its corresponding effect. The second is that whatever action has been accumulated, its result will be experienced on an increased level. It means it increases and bears wider and larger results than the action itself. Then the karma, an action which is not being created cannot be experienced, and whatever actions has been created is its effect will be experienced. It's not going to be lost. Therefore, this is why it is extremely important for us to do not let even a single day go by without purifying the negative karmas, the negative actions we have accumulated that day. And therefore, this is why I keep advising that before you're going to sleep every night, review the day, check what you have done, recognize the negative actions, the positive actions you have accumulated, and rejoice on the virtues. So then you keep multiplying those virtues by rejoicing, and make a strong determination that again you're going to do like that also the next day, and so forth. And also recognize the negative actions that you have accumulated, apply the four opponent powers. In short, make sure that you attempt to purify those particular actions, negative actions accumulated that very day, to stop their multiplying force, their increasing force, and you generate a strong determination that you're not going to engage in those actions again in the next day. So this is a very important practice to be taken in your heart. In brief, what should be done all the time is to practice awareness of the three doors of the body, speech, and mind. When you are alone, practice awareness of the mind. What's going on in my mind right now? Is my mind going into virtues or non-virtues? And while recognizing that the mind is going into non-virtues, apply the opponents, the opponent powers to that particular non-virtues, and bring back the mind to virtues. And while you find yourself with others, you should mainly apply awareness in your speech. Actually, for those who want to be happy, even while experiencing great mental hardships, all they have to do is to place confidence in the karma. Then you know that sufferings comes as a result of previously accumulated actions. If I have accumulated these particular actions myself, nobody else is going to experience the result but myself. Therefore, by experiencing this particular result right now, I'm actually getting rid of a huge load of negative karma that I've accumulated in the past. And that itself serves to clear completely the mind from any hardships, even at time of incredible difficulties.
If we investigate what is the essential teaching of the Buddha, what is the single most important teaching of the Buddha? Some people say it is the teaching on compassion, or which in its highest form is the teaching about bodhicitta. Some people might say that the most important teaching of the Buddha is the teachings of the true nature of self and phenomena, the wisdom teachings of the Buddha. Some people may say something else, but I think what we have to say is the single most important teaching of the Buddha is the teaching on the law of cause and effect, about karma. This is the single most important teaching of the Buddha because it contains within it all of the other teachings. By understanding the law of cause and effect and practicing it in one's life, it is the way to develop love and kindness and compassion and eventually bodhicitta. By practicing the law of cause and effect in our daily life, it is being wise, and it is the way to develop wisdom. And by practicing, giving central importance in our daily life to observing the law of cause and effect as the single most important thing, moment by moment, by doing that, we develop renunciation. There is the chance for some momentary happiness. We are very attached to momentary happiness, but then we remember the teaching on the law of cause and effect, and we remember that if I do something to get this momentary happiness, maybe I have to lie to get it, maybe I have to steal to get it, or do something. Certainly I at least have to follow my attachment. I have to follow my desire, and therefore I create negative karma. It's a negative action, puts a negative imprint in my mind. In order to get this little moment of worldly happiness, I create the potential for suffering in the future. Practicing the law of cause and effect is the key to developing every quality on the path to liberation and enlightenment. So that is the fundamental refuge. Understanding the law of cause and effect, developing faith in it, putting a key emphasis to being mindful of the law of cause and effect in our daily life so that we can observe it. It's Lama Zopa Rinpoche makes this joke, just ordinary mindfulness is not good enough. Now I am picking up the knife, now I am stabbing this person, now I am stabbing this person very carefully. That kind of mindfulness is not helpful. Real mindfulness has this moral connotation of knowing, being aware that one is doing something that is either virtuous or non-virtuous. Knowing that this thing is going to produce suffering now and in the future, or this action of body, speech or mind is going to produce some happiness now and in the future. We need that kind of mindfulness. Mindfulness mixed with an understanding and faith in the law of cause and effect. And the stronger the faith, the stronger the energy to withhold from doing negative things, thinking negative things, saying negative things, and doing negative things. And also the more we understand the law of cause and effect, we develop a deeper understanding of what is negative, what is harmful to ourselves and others. Right? So that is the key teaching, the key practice.
I was working in Washington, D.C. in politics in a very fast-paced environment. When you're in Washington, D.C., part of your work and in politics is people lie, and that's part of your business, is to lie. In fact, you are encouraged to lie, and you're rewarded for lying. And bosses will come up to you after you've lied to somebody, a client or a customer or someone, and said, that was great, it was great how you did that deal, fantastic, you got $5,000 from them, and great, and so we would tell lies all the time, and I never thought there was any problem. I thought that was how I was supposed to be. So then in my late 20s, when I came in contact with the Buddhist teachings in Nepal, and I heard the teachings on karma, and these teachings were hard to listen to. I mean, they were teachings that, if you lie, then you're going to create the cause for no one to ever believe you in the future. And if you steal, you will create a result that people will steal from you, and you will lose valuable things that you value. And there were all these teachings that, if I did these bad things, then bad things were going to happen to me. And when you get angry at somebody, you're creating the cause for someone to get angry at you and yell at you. And I didn't like to get yelled at. I don't think anybody does. So I left the teachings with what we call the 10 non-virtues, and sometimes called the 10 ethical guidelines of, not stealing, not killing, not creating sexual misconduct, and things like that, not lying and gossiping, and I started to work with those. I started to just try one, because lying in my work had been a big thing. I was really used to that. So I got a new job when I came back to America, and I was trying to be really careful not to lie. And I did have some experiences in some workplaces where I didn't think people listened to me. And for 2 years, I very seriously went after the lying. I was very careful in my relationships not to lie. And I was very careful in work, in business conduct with people, that I wouldn't lie. And after like 2 or 3 years, something started to change. And I found people were listening, and people did believe me. It started to really change my world. They say that sometimes when you change your ethical behavior by speaking the truth, by cultivating life and helping, to save lives and freeing animals, and being respectful in my relationships with people, particularly intimate relationships, and cultivating harmony in them, and trying to practice taking care of my possessions and treating other possessions with respect, people, if I borrowed something, and all these things of right speech, of speaking the truth, and really trying to use my speech meaningfully, not gossiping all the time, and not criticizing people and judging people, and not kind of dividing people in speech, and trying to have positive thoughts about things. I noticed that things changed. When you wake up in the morning, you have 2 choices. You can have a good day, or you can have a bad day. And even when bad things happen to you, depending on your reaction to them, you could say, a bad thing happened to me today, But you know, I'm not going to get angry at my friend because that's just going to create this situation of anger to come back at me. You know, when you start to understand it that way, then you stop reacting. Why did they do this to me? This is not fair. With karma, there's no more injustice. Things might look like it's not fair, but basically it's something you've created. So the nice thing with karma is it puts you at the controls. There isn't anybody doing it to you. You're not a victim. You're basically in charge of what kind of seeds you'd like to plant from here on out. So by watching my activities, the activities really in my body, speech, and mind, I feel like that's going to create a good chance for me, the next time around.
For me, the Buddhist instructions were similar to that of a business plan. If your forecast, if your plan, doesn't have a proper foundation, then all your forecasting is going to go off. It's just not going to succeed. I realized then I better look at what are the problems I'm facing in the company, and then I better look at what seeds I've planted in the past, because all my suffering has come from a cause. The major problem we had was inventory pilferage, stock pilferage and losses. And so, every year, merchandise, clothing, people steal them from our warehouse, from our shops, and we don't know about it till the end of the year when we look and we say, oh my God, so many goods are missing, So then I realized by looking at the teachings that through investigation, I realized that the cause of that was stealing. Now you say, now how does stealing have to do with losing inventory? But then stealing can mean many things also, And I realized that sometimes our company did not pay on time, So by delaying payment could be considered also stealing. So when I realized that, I said to myself, this must change. So we had to renegotiate with our suppliers to get longer credit terms and then honor those due dates that we said we would meet. You see? So that was what we had to apply, that antidote, so that we could stop the cause of more further losses and further pilferage, you see. So something had to be done. We had to do it straight away. So this was the answer we thought we would have to do. The result of that, since 2 years ago, is that our inventory losses have come down, you see. So this really shows me that, Buddha's teachings do work. The more that I see that happening, it really inspires me to study Dharma, because that way, you know what, you can change your life. I could change my life. If I didn't like the causes if I didn't like what's going on, Buddhism is kind. It allows you to change so that you can create your own happiness. But you need to understand that you're creating your own suffering. And I needed to understand that I was creating my own suffering. Nobody was doing it to me. It was myself, my causes from the past. And you'll see, and I could say that, well, I don't think I did that. I don't think I did that. If my memory cannot even remember 6 months ago, then how can I remember all the bad deeds I've done 10 years ago, 20 years ago? I don't. But the point is, I've created this garden. It's got a lot of weeds, So I have to spend my time reading purification, collecting merit, studying teachings, and devoting myself to the Lama, all things that will create more happiness. And then by me being happy, then I can benefit sentient beings, because they are happy to be working in the company. They're happy because they say, things are going well, and they will be rewarded too. So everybody benefits.
Okay. So I like that video. I think it's really good. Good for my mind. So are we out of time? No, I'm just kidding. We're good. I wanted to just say a little bit about definitions and where we're going to go with this class. And I haven't done this much in the past, but I'm going to, a minute here. So now, Linda, did you get my email yesterday? Okay, good. Now, how are we going to distribute this to other people? The homework. It's online. Okay. All right. So, so there's a module on, and I haven't used these classes very, very often, the online classes when I've taught Discovering Buddhism, but there's a module called All About Karma, and there's a lady named Renate Ogilvie. I don't know her. She's from Australia. She's a psychotherapist and worked in a hospice situation, and she's had years and years of experience. And Lama Zopa, who rarely asked people to teach, he asked her to teach. So that's kind of a special honor in and of itself. But anyway, she teaches this module, and so there are 4 different sections in it, and there's a quiz. So I want you to do the quizzes. You can listen to her teachings too if you want, but you can, in fact, you might need to get the answers to the quizzes. But anyway, and also the meditations at the end of this, there are 3 or 4 meditations that are really important to do. And one of them is, we're going to talk about it tonight. And they mention it multiple times. The 4 laws of karma, right? You know, and we're going to go over that in a minute again. But there's meditations on that. And then there's meditations on purification practice, meditations on the 10 non-virtues. Let's see, what are they? I think there may be 4 or 5. Meditation on 10 non-virtues, 4 characteristics of karma, Vajrasattva practice. Yeah. So those are the big ones. And it's, so let's talk about the 4 characteristics of karma, because I want to sort of expand on that a little bit from what was said. But maybe I better do this before I do that. All right. So how many people like absolutely in their heart of hearts know without a shadow of a doubt that karma is 100% true? No way. Only a Buddha could actually say that. Because we don't know. Like, pardon? Yeah, we have faith. All right, so there are different ways we talk about 3 ways to understand phenomena. This is Buddhism 101, right? We got lists. We got lists and lists and more lists. 3 ways to understand phenomena. One way is a direct application of our senses. In other words, we see it irrefutably. There you are. Here I am. This is Kadampa Center. It's direct perception. Not a problem there. Then we can understand things through logic. For example, the teachings on emptiness, we don't see those directly, do we? We have to understand those through logic. So we understand, for example, that, I'll give you a quick class on emptiness. So 30 years ago, if I held this up, what would you see? A block of metal. You would not have the concept of cell phone. if a dog walked in here and saw it, what would they do with it? Probably chew on it. They wouldn't see cell phone either. So it's only through, our conditioning we have this concept of cell phone. There's no cell phone that exists from the side of the cell phone. Otherwise, 30 years ago when you walked in, you could have seen cell phone because it would have literally been shouting cell phone. It exists from its own side. You see what I'm saying? Things appear to exist out there, inherent of our, or independent of our mind labeling. It appears to have this substantial, inherent, independent existence that's independent of causes and conditions, parts, and a consciousness that labels it and designates it. So when Buddhism looked, what the Buddha saw was that when he said that our ordinary perception of reality is completely wrong. We think things exist independently, inherently, and they don't. They exist interdependently. They exist independence upon causes and conditions, parts, and a consciousness that designates that. And so why is that so important? Because the way things appear and the way they exist under analysis are the complete opposite, isn't it? It's a lie, it's a fiction. So we can only understand that through reasoning. Eventually we can have a direct perception of emptiness, but at the level we're at, we have to use analysis. All right, so that's number 2. And then the third way to understand is reliance on the teachings of the Buddha. So there's some things in Buddhism that we cannot completely understand, and karma is one of them. For example, when a baby is aborted, or let's say a baby's born but has, birth defects, or something random happens, like you're at a party and a bunch of people come flying in and what are those, and start shooting at you. What happened in Israel a couple of weeks ago, that kind of thing. There's no explanation for that we're knowledgeable. I mean, like a newborn baby with defects, we go, well, that baby didn't deserve that. So where did that come from? Okay, well, from the Buddhist perspective, again, this is a little bit hard to hear. I understand that, but from the Buddhist perspective, everything has its own causes. Everything has its own causes. So when something happens like that we would ordinarily say is inexplicable, it's just random. Buddhism would say, no, there's nothing that's random. Everything has its own individual causes and conditions that ripen into that result. And we push back against that. But so what did that little baby do to deserve that? No, it's not. That's not the point. The point is that infant has a mind stream that's been going from beginningless time up until the present moment. It's like a river that's going through Africa, for example, and each country it goes through, it takes a different, they have a different word for it, right? This is the Nile River, but in Egypt it's probably has one name, and then in Uganda it has another name. And the same thing with our stream of consciousness. It goes from lifetime to lifetime, and each lifetime we take a different form. We might be a human in this life. Next life, we might be an animal. We might be born in a hellish existence, in a really joyless realm, or we may be born in a palatial God realm. It just depends. But things are happening for causes. There's a cause and a reason. And so, getting back to this thing that's kind of hard to buy into. The Buddhist scripture is saying that, as Rabina was saying, if we buy into, or at least this is what I invite people to do. I invite you to creatively align with the laws of karma. Creatively align. Not that we can 100% prove it, because we cannot at this point. We can, it's logical. A lot of it's very logical, and it's extremely helpful. But we can't 100% prove it yet. It said that when we become a Buddha, when we actually we have our fulfill our full potential as an enlightened being, then we can see karma directly. We fully understand karma, but until then, we have to take it. It has to be an element of faith. Do you get that? People see that? We cannot 100% prove it. So, as Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa once said, he actually said this, kind of shocked me. This is my very first teaching, Buddhist teaching, and I'd been in Kathmandu for like 4 weeks. And I'd signed up for this meditation course, which was completely opposite. I didn't know what I was getting into when I did it. And at the end of the course, I was hooked. And Lama Zopa said at the end of the course, he said, you know what? He said, all of the teachings that I've given over the last 4 weeks, he said, maybe not a word of it is true. Maybe not a word of it's true. He said, but if you live your life as if it were true, you will have an extraordinary life. You will have an amazing life. You will evolve in a positive way, much greater than you could ever imagine possible. So that's why I'm inviting us all. Let's creatively align for the next, how many weeks is this class? Oh, I don't know if I can go that long. But, align with these teachings and see what happens. Try this. Let's try to be mindful. All right? Let's try to be mindful of the laws of karma all the time. So, any questions right now before I get up and write these things down? Any questions about what was said up here? What anybody said? To be sure.
Remember, if you're on Zoom, you can just get my attention, raise your hand. If you're on YouTube, you can type it in the chat if you have a question.
All right. No questions? All right, well, let's do this. So what is the definition of karma? Some of you discovering Buddhism people who've taken this class before, or maybe you've already, whatever. What is the definition of karma? Actions of what? Action is, sometimes karma is equated with action. And of course, we're talking about actions of body, speech, and mind. So, this is why in Buddhist ethics are so important, right? Because if we don't live ethically, then we create a lot of negative karma and we suffer. And guess what? Normally when you take vows, we usually take, the lay people in Buddhist countries try to live by four, I guess you'd say vows. Don't kill. Don't steal. I might miss some of these. Don't kill. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Don't lie. And the last one's don't get intoxicated. Don't get loaded. Why would they even mention that? Nothing wrong with a little booze, a little alcohol or drug. What's wrong with drugs, Well, the problem with drugs is when you do this, you can do all the other ones and not even know it or not even be mindful of it. So again, in Buddhist countries where people really try to take the teachings to heart, they try to live by at least those precepts. Avoid killing, stealing, adultery, lying, and intoxicants. Okay, and there may be more. I mean, obviously there are many more. So karma, Sanskrit word, equals action, and it's also synonymous with intention. Don't ask me to explain that, but it is. Now, if the intention is so important in karma, and it is. For example, if I give you something, like I'm practicing generosity, and I give you something, and I give you but I want something, but in my mind I want something back, right? It's not a pure gift. I'm giving something, but my motivation is to get something back. That'll all happen at Christmas time. When you don't get something back, you're going to be ticked off when you give stuff to people. But see, intention is like the most beneficial intention is a selfless intention. I'm giving it to you because I care about you, because I want you to be happy, because I know this is what you want and need. So intention is crucial. It's the key factor in karma. It's the key thing to keep in mind, because our actions, they might look virtuous, but if the intention is non-virtuous, it's not going to go well. And what's the most powerful intention of all? It got mentioned in the movie, in the video. What's the most powerful intention? So what is bodhicitta? What does that mean? So we're practicing generosity so that we can develop our mind and develop this amazing attitude of bodhicitta, this altruistic intention to become enlightened in order to be a Buddha. So we want to become a Buddha. Why? So we can help others. So we have to create a lot of positive karma. And so when an action is motivated by bodhicitta, like if I give you this and my motivation is just, I want you to be happy, and I sincerely do, I get like 1 karma brownie point. But if my motivation is I'm giving this to you because I want to benefit countless living beings, the karma is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's why it's so powerful. Bodhicitta, the attitude of bodhicitta, actions motivated by bodhicitta become exponentially more powerful than when they're motivated by self-centeredness, right? So the 4 laws of karma, number 1, sometimes we say, I'm going to say definite. I know there's a lot of different, karma is definite. Well, this is pretty straightforward, right? So what does that mean? Anybody? And? Yeah, but what is definite in this sense means what? It's not. This is not a trick question, by the way. I mean, they went over it 3 times in the video. So let's think about this. Karma is definite. Positive actions always lead to happiness. In fact, that's the definition. I'm going to say positive leads to happiness, and negative actions lead to dukkha. That's a Sanskrit word for suffering. Okay? You know, bad outcome. So in fact, the very definition of virtue is you look at the result, not the immediate result. Because if you're raping somebody or stealing something or doing something that you get a charge from, could even be killing somebody, you might get some joy from that, right? That might give you some immediate pleasure. But if the long-term consequence of an action is happiness, then that action was virtuous. And if the long-term consequence of the action is suffering, that action is non-virtuous. So that's how we determine if an action is virtuous or non-virtuous, is the result. And so that's really kind of confusing, because the long-term result, we may not even be here. It may ripen in some future lifetime, but even if it was ripened in this lifetime, it could ripen in weeks or months later. So in the moment, this is crucial. In the moment that we are acting with body, speech, and mind, we need to be aware of our motivation, because actions motivated by self-cherishing, okay? Oh, I'm going to put it this way. Actions motivated by attachment, ignorance, or, aversion, yeah. 3 poisons: greed, hatred, and ignorance, okay? Actions motivated by non-attachment, non-hatred, and non-ignorance always leads to happiness. Actions motivated by greed, hatred, and ignorance always lead to suffering. So that's where we need to be paying attention, is to our motivation, our intention for acting on any particular action. And like I said, I was talking about the precepts in Buddhist countries. It's very difficult to control our mind, isn't it? You can't do it. Anybody try to meditate and focus for 10 seconds? Mind goes off in 100 directions. But the one thing this is Venerable Rubina, and I'm channeling her, but the one thing we can do is keep our mouth shut and our hands to ourselves. So it's much easier to manage our speech and our actions than it is our mind. And so the vows that you might take as a Buddhist really have to do with, most of them have to do with controlling the actions of our speech and our body, because those are things that are easier to manage. So this is crucial. Got to understand this. Got to really understand it, and right down to our bone marrow. So the next one, is kind of scary, because karma is expandable. I don't know how to spell expandable, but that's close enough. Expandable. So so what does that mean? Pardon? It increases. So where does an oak tree come from? An acorn. Now, you got a 100-ton oak tree that came from some little tiny acorn. As soon as it got planted in the ground and the conditions were appropriate, it sprouts, and then it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. Karma's that way. So every positive, just a smile or a kind word to anybody, we need to take every opportunity we can to practice virtue and plant these little seeds of karma any chance we can, and big ones too, because they grow exponentially. And by the same token, negative actions, some nasty word to your spouse or your kids or your coworkers, or something you did, anything you did that's negative, that's non-virtuous, is going to grow exponentially. That's why the last thing I put down here was, remember, how to purify negative karma, because we have to do that. That's what Rilpa Rinpoche said. I try to get my students to, at the end of the day, to review their day. When you do something positive, rejoice, because you're more likely to do it again if you rejoice. But also, because karma is expandable and it's growing exponentially, we need to review the day. And when we've done something that's been unskillful and detrimental and negative, we need to recognize that and clean it up. And so they're the 4 opponent powers, which will come in a later class, but we can talk about that. But karma is expandable, it's growing exponentially. And so we need to be mindful when we behave in an unskillful way, but also be aware, hey, let's clean this up as quick as we can. There was a Lama Atisha. This is a statue of him over here. He was an Indian Lama teacher who came to Tibet and actually was revived Tibetan Buddhism in Tibet. And it was said that he always carried a Kadampa stupa with him. And, when he was riding along on his donkey and with his little entourage, and whenever something negative would come into his mind, the story goes, he would get off his donkey, he'd put his stupa on something, and he'd do prostrations and do purification practice right on the spot. Clean up that karma right away, because it's expanding. I don't want to suffer. I don't want the end result of that karma. So something to keep in mind, right? And number 3, karma. This one's really hard. So I'm sorry, but I'll apologize. I'm not going to apologize, because I'm not making this up. I'm telling you what Buddhism says. It says you cannot experience a result without, that means without creating the cause. Okay? Now, anybody got a problem with that? That's pretty harsh, isn't it? That means no matter how, I mean, I'm sure we all have victim stories. I do. I have stories of where people mistreated me, or how dare you treat me this way, or how did that happen, or this, things happen, right? And we feel misused, abused, bad things have happened to us, to people in our lives, everything. And we go, well, and we feel like, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be treated this way. I'm a kind person, or I've been doing the right thing. But this is saying, look, this is saying two things. It's both positive. I'm going to say it has two sides. One is that this is saying that we are accountable for our lives, like up until right now. Everything that's happened to us in our lives is the karmic fruit of our former actions. It might not be me in this lifetime. It might have been a being in a former lifetime who was part of my mental continuum who created karma. Could have been 1,000 lifetimes ago. Could have been the immediate lifetime before this one, or it could have been even in this lifetime. Some karma is so powerful it can ripen in this lifetime, and then it ripens in a result. And so, the point here, I think, is that it's never helpful when you think about it to feel like you're a victim, because you're always going to be hanging on to resentment and anger, and it's not helpful. It is destructive to our peace of mind. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So this is saying that it's a way. I'll give you a quick example. How much time we got? Oh my God. All right. Quick example. So I taught this class, I don't know, in the early 90s. And this was at the Unitarian Church. And there were like maybe a couple more people than there are here, actually. I'd advertised it. Anyway, and it was, anyway, and there were two ladies sitting side by side. And one of them was so angry. I mean, when she saw, particularly this one, because she had been raped by her father, I believe, sexually abused and all kinds of stuff like that. And she was so angry. She said, I do not deserve, there's nothing I've done to deserve to be treated this way. And I would say, you're right. There's nothing you've done to deserve to be treated that way. But that's not what we're saying here. This is saying being accountable. And right next to her, and so she was in her late 20s, and still she was in therapy, on a lot of drugs. She talked about it very openly. And she was still angry, as just really angry about all that had happened and how it had destroyed her life and her peace of mind. And there was a girl sitting right next to her that said, you know what? This is the same thing happened to me. My father sexually abused me, and I held on to that anger and that, that resentment and that for so many years until I was about 18 or 19. And then she said she took a class, and the point of the class was to take responsibility for your life. Not like you understood how or why, but just say, okay, I'm going to be accountable for my life. I don't understand how, but it's going to be where I'm coming from now on. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to choose victimhood anymore. I'm going to choose full accountability. And she said from that moment on, her life changed. Completely different, completely amazing life. So kind of cool. And so this was so poignant, because these two ladies had almost identical situations. One was holding on to the resentment and anger of being a victim, and the other had the same thing happen, but chose to be accountable. This is about choosing to be accountable for our stuff, but it's also about how to create the future, isn't it? Because if we want to experience a result like liberation, enlightenment, freedom, joy, compassion, great relationships, ease of life, just having our lives go well. And maybe not this lifetime, maybe some future lifetime, but if we want to have these experiences, we have to create the cause. So in Buddhism, the karma is a creative force. We can, as Lama Zopa said, we can literally shape our future by the choices that we make. By the choices we make, we can create the future that we want. And what do we want? What we want is peace. We want satisfaction. We want joy. We want connection. We want love. We can create those causes, but they won't happen without a cause. We have to create the causes to experience those results. It's pretty straightforward, but it's very, very powerful. Very powerful. And last but not least is that karma is never lost. Karmic seeds are never lost, which they say it different ways. But basically, if we plant a karmic seed, now there's a couple of caveats, which I'll throw in here, but if we plant a karmic seed, we will eventually have to experience the result of that karma, right? We plant a seed of kindness and love and compassion and actions motivated by our body, speech, and mind are planting those kinds of seeds. Well, we'll just be forced to see ourselves in paradise, right? We'll be forced to be happy. And if we plant negative seeds, those seeds will eventually ripen in suffering. So what do you want? Because you can't, they don't just disappear. But that's not true. They do disappear. We can disappear our negative karma, and our positive karma too, by the way. For example, we can destroy positive karma by strong negative actions, particularly anger. That's why anger is so destructive. We can destroy positive karma. One moment of anger toward our guru, say, for example, said to destroy eons of positive karma. Whoa, watch out for anger, right? And by the same token, even though karma is never lost, we can diminish the power of karma and eventually purify it completely by applying the four opponent powers, which we'll talk about next week and in the following weeks and so on. You can read about it. But the four opponent powers, so we can purify negative karma and we can destroy positive karma. But the karmic seeds are never lost. And the ultimate purification for our negative karma is direct intuitive insight into reality and into emptiness. That's the way we ultimately can we can weaken the force of karma through just the four opponent powers, but eventually we have to understand emptiness to destroy, to completely eliminate the negative karmic consequences of any action. Any questions about that? This is a very quiet crowd. It's so it's so juicy though. It's so good. This is the best stuff ever because this is telling us how we can create our life, the life that we've dreamed of. This is how we do it. And there's a lot more to it, by the way. There's a lot more stuff to understand, but this is the crux of it right here. So let's do a, how much time we got here? We got started late, right? We got 7. Oh, well, whatever. All right, so let's do a little meditation here. Set up. Is this room warm or is it maybe I've been up running around, walking around too much. All right, so I'm trying to decide if I'm going to let Sanghi Kadro lead this meditation or if I'm going to do it. Sanghi Kadro is this nun that I met back in the early 80s. She lives in Australia. Anybody remember Dr. Nick Rebush? He's a Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives. Nick and Sangi Kadro were like a couple for like, they were literally married for a couple of years. And then when they went to Kopan and took the meditation course and met Lama Yeshe, they both almost simultaneously decided to become monks and nuns. And she's still a nun. He disrobed, got married, but he runs Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives, Nick Rubush. So Sangi Kadro's fantastic. And if you do the guided meditations on this FPMT Online Learning Center, there's one on, let's do the 10 non-virtuous actions, because I think, we've gone over this enough. I want you to do this meditation this week, but I'm going to touch on the 10 non-virtuous actions. So let's sit up straight and with a still body, your spine straight, and just be mindful of your breathing for a few seconds. And bring your mind to a state of relaxation, but clear focus. Sometimes just monitor the breath at the tip of the nose, or you can, some people like to count. So you count in and out 1, in and out 2, up to 10. And then when you get there, you start all over again. Or you can do the 9-round breathing, which is a nice way to do too. So there are 10, they call them 10 non-virtuous actions. There are actually 84,000 non-virtuous actions, but these are the biggies. The ones that are talked about most. There are 3 of body, 4 of speech, 3 of mind. And they go from the heaviest to the least heavy. And these are the kinds of things, if you've taken refuge in, if you've decided that you're a Buddhist or you want to be a Buddhist and you've taken refuge, then the minimal practice is to strive to avoid the 10 non-virtues. That's minimal practice. So we have to know what these things are. And the actions, these kinds of actions are the ones that cause 99% of the suffering that we experience. So we need to really pay attention. We need to understand what these are, and we need to avoid them as much as possible. So the first one, the 3 of body, are killing, taking a life, taking any life. You think, well, a human life would be the heaviest, of course, and maybe a bacteria would be the least, But there's different gradations of taking lives, from insects and So we do, even sometimes we practice animal liberation to save lives, save like worms that would have been fed to fish and stuff like that. So, but taking a life creates the heaviest of negative karmas, and the full result of that is to be reborn. They're different. We'll talk about the results of any of these particular karmic actions in the future classes. But the karmic result of killing, as you can imagine, is to be killed in our future lifetime, or to have our lives a lifespan shortened. And then there's stealing, taking what's not freely given, and sexual misconduct, which is harmful sexual behavior that harms others. Technically, they say having sexual relations with someone else's partner, but it's bigger than that, isn't it? It's deceiving others and using them for our own physical pleasure, I guess, and the many gradations of that. So it's sexual misconduct. So the three: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Those are the three of body that we need to avoid. And you might say, well, I've never done that in this lifetime, or, but guess what? In former lifetimes, we've done it all. We make Jeffrey Dahmer look like an altar boy, We've done everything in every past lifetime, every kind of negative action. We have the karmic seeds in our mental continuum. So, we need we need to be aware of that and purify those karmas. But we've killed, we've stolen, we've committed adultery, sexual misconduct many times. And those seeds are in our mental continuum. So the four of speech are lying, which is basically deceiving others. And sometimes we can lie without even speaking, can't we? But generally, we're talking about speaking in a way that, as Venerable Amy talked about, how the culture in DC, not surprising, is lying, deceiving others. You get rewarded for it, even. Unbelievable. And then slander, which is turning someone against somebody else, like me bad-mouthing somebody. We do it all the time, unconsciously sometimes. We say things about other people to turn somebody against them. Have to be really careful. Again, the body and speech are the easiest to control, because if we can just keep our mouth shut, a lot of these things wouldn't happen. And then harsh speech that disturbs not only our mind, but the mind of others. And gossip, frivolous speech, wasting our time and other people's time with gossipy, frivolous, unnecessary speech, just to hear our head rattle. So again, the four of speech: lying, slander, harsh, and frivolous speech. All planting karmic seeds that will all ripen in future suffering. Don't want that. And the three of mind, and there's different ways that this is packaged, but usually it's like greed or grasping or clinging, attachment, like that. That's one. And again, this is in terms of everything is going from heaviest to lightest, right? Attachment creates a lot of problems. We think attachment is a friend, but no, attachment is not our friend, because things are always changing and we're clinging, and there's bound to be suffering, right? And then aversion or ill will creates a lot of negative karma. Any action motivated by that is going to be very negative. We have to, again, watching our mind. And ignorance, which is the hardest to see, the hardest for us to realize, is to see reality as it is, free of our projections and our misconceptions and are created by ignorance from countless lifetimes. So we can call it attachment or greed, hatred or ill will, ignorance or misknowledge of reality. So those are the 10 non-virtuous actions. So this week, in addition to being aware of the 4 laws of karma, as much as possible, avoid the 3 of body, just killing, even insects. If you get a chance to step over that or catch that cockroach and liberate it, take it outside, do that. You don't have to smush it. Or mosquitoes are gone, but same thing. Avoid killing, avoid stealing, avoid sexual misconduct, avoid lying, slander, harsh, frivolous talk, avoid greed and attachment, ill will and hatred, and ignorance, closed-minded ignorance, as much as we can. And interestingly, the practice of virtue is not just, for example, when we think of killing, well, the opposite of killing would be saving lives, so that must be virtuous. Well, it is. Again, a lot of it has to do with our motivation, but saving lives is very virtuous. But when we talk about virtue in Buddhism, in this context of these 10 non-virtues, it's like if we're, unless you've taken vows are different, and I'll talk about that in the future, but if you're in a situation where you could kill something, take a life, and you choose not to, that is virtue. That's the practice of virtue. It's being mindful of the impulse to kill and not giving in to it, and not killing, avoiding killing. The same thing with stealing. You're in a situation where you could steal easily, take that which wasn't freely given, but you restrain. That's the practice of virtue. Sexual misconduct, in a situation where you could commit adultery and you choose not to. That's the practice of virtue. All the way through the 10 non-virtuous actions. Being aware of when the impulse arises to behave in those ways and interrupting that impulse. That is virtue. And of course, the opposite is virtue as well. Saving lives, being generous, practicing good sexual morality, and so on and so on. But these are things that we really need to understand. So we'll do the dedication verses, and the homework is going to be online. So I guess it'll be on the Kadampa Center website, right? So people can go online and
Yeah, so if you have enrolled, which if you are on Zoom or YouTube, I'm assuming you enrolled in this class, then you should have received a confirmation email that came immediately after you enrolled. And though that email would have instructions on how to access the course materials. Unfortunately, there's an issue right now, which is a strange issue, in which when I am on site or in others, I can't pull up the Kadampa Center website. I can pull up other websites. And this is something Kathy's been looking into, trying to figure that out. But I can't go through it tonight and show you how to access those materials. But if you just go to the Kadampa Center website, kadampa-center.org, and then go to the calendar, which is top right-hand corner, is the easiest place to get to it. And then just click on Discovering Buddhism, and then that will have the information on how to enroll. And once you submit that information, it's like your name and your email address. You will be sent a confirmation email right then with the very detailed directions on how to access the course materials. If you still are having problems, you can always email me at program.linda@kadampa-center.org. And I don't expect you to remember that, but but anyway, so yes, the homework is online, and that's where you can also, there's instructions in that homework on how to access the FPMT Online Learning Center that Don Brown was talking about going to, and there's the list of meditations on there. And if you don't already have an account for that online learning center, you can just create one. Again, it's just, entering your email address, and then you would need to type in a password, and that is in the course materials. So you'll need to access that first.
That key is the correct key, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. You're going to create a password, and then in order to get access to the Discovering Buddhism course,
on Karma, you got to type in the key.
And again, that's in the course materials.
Yeah.
All right. So you ready for
the dedication?
That's the wrong one.
So this week, this is Sangi Kadra, who's, like I said, to me, she's like a goddess. She's so wonderful in every way. But anyway, this is a typed out version of her guided meditation on the 4 characteristics of karma that you can access, on the online course. You can listen to her voice, going through this, just a couple of pages long. It's nice. It's a nice meditation. And I want to thank people for taking their time, because you got other things you could do, right? You could be watching Monday Night Football, or you could be doing other things, but you chose to be here, and so that gives Linda and me, and it gives us all a chance to practice together, and it's much more powerful to practice as a group than it is just by yourself. And those of you who are online as well, thank you for being here and participating. I look forward to seeing you next week. And this is so we need to do the dedication verses, and then we'll wrap it up until next Monday. And one thing I would like to request is that you come every week. Does anybody have a problem being here every week? And please try to come every week, because your presence here makes a difference. Because, when somebody doesn't show up, in other words, we get a little group energy thing going here. And now when people don't show up, it does affect the energy of the group. So if, don't think that you not being here next Monday night won't matter. It will matter. And so let's work together. I wish also the Tibetan monks, if they had been here in this class, if I was a Tibetan Lama and I was giving these teachings, then they would go outside and they would debate for like 4 or 5 hours on these subjects. They'd be in the, yelling at each other and, taking one position. No, karma's a bunch of bull crap. I don't believe it. And why should I buy into this? And you should, they would recite scriptural proofs. Anyway, they would debate things to try to go deeper into the meaning of these teachings. And I think it's important. There's an online forum. I don't know how effective it is, but there's an opportunity. I think if you have questions to participate in the online forum, if not, you can ask Linda. She knows most of the answers. And if she doesn't, she'll call me. And then I'll ask Esha Gellick, and one of us will figure it out. All right, so let's do the dedication verses. Thank you.
If you're using the Gold Prayer Book, it's page 32, 33.
Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by the sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May the timely rains of bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, so long as sentient beings remain, till then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So again, thank you everyone for your participation tonight. Thank you especially to Linda and to Chris for, again, Linda and Chris sort of make these teachings happen from teacher to teacher, from month to month and year to year. So thank you for that, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Don. And for those of you who are, there was a question on Zoom. These classes are recorded. In fact, the entire DB series from that started back in January of this year, all modules so far have been recorded, and they are on the Kadampa Center website. You can access them from our YouTube channel. That information is also in the course materials.
It's good. I'll tell you what, if karma were instant, do you think there'd be wars going on right now? Do you think our behavior would change?
So
Big time.
for those of you online, Don is saying, if karma were instant, do you think that there would be wars going on right now?
Giving money away, wouldn't you?
And we'd all be quite generous.
You get it back 100-fold, 1,000-fold. If karma were instant. So it's a cool book. I've listened to the audible version of it twice because it was entertaining. But if anybody wants to read it, yeah.
So you're negating John Lennon's thesis that there is some karma. It's going to get you, knock you right in the head.
All right. Good night, everyone on Zoom and YouTube. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thanks, Linda.
Email me if you have questions.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Thank you, Linda.
Program.linda at
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Don.
kadampa-center.org. It's a long one.